Hi there, and welcome to the third episode of the 123 Detect miniseries. Today's topic is malware detection. Some of the most common forms of switch malware attacks include man-in-the-middle and ATM cash-outs. Here are some examples of high-profile attacks that have appeared in the negative PR limelight. In May 2018, the Central Bank of Mexico was hit with a $15 million malware attack. Only 3 months later, in August of 2018, one of India's oldest banks, Cosmos Cooperative, experienced a $13.5 million ATM cash-out scheme, had 12,000 ATMs across 28 countries in only 2 days. And most recently, in May of 2019, Dutch Bangla Bank experienced a $3 million ATM cash-out. Let's take a look at an ATM cash-out where switch malware is executed. From this modern-day payment environment, we can see that a bank ATMs acquire both competitor and customer transactions. Foreign terminals also acquire the bank's customer transactions. These foreign terminals connect through a payment network such as a Visa or MasterCard network using the ISO 8583 format or other ISO variant. On-us, remote on-us, and off-us transactions are forwarded to the bank's authorization host where account verification happens and limits are enforced. This is also where back-end fraud solutions usually sit. Now let's take a look at how the attack is executed. Through a combination of spear phishing and social engineering, malware is introduced into the bank environment on a transaction switch, often laying dormant for quite some time. In the case of an ATM cash-out scenario, card information is used to create cloned cards and distributed to money mules. Successive attacks are then launched from a large number of ATMs. Once the switch is compromised and the malware is activated, the transaction switch goes into a stand-in mode and starts to approve fraudulent transactions. As transactions never go to the back end to be authorized, the limits on accounts are not enforced and fraud detection systems are blindsided. With fraud systems blind, an unlimited amount of attacks and withdrawals can happen without ever being detected or stopped. Transaction switches that are compromised usually sit in a PCI DSS environment, which is a network that is completely segregated from all other environments. In these types of attacks, malware is able to get past anti-malware, application layer firewalls, application whitelisting, privileged identity management, and DLP solutions. So how do we get preemptive about detecting and preventing ATM cash-outs and switch malware attacks? Well, we need to start thinking real-time about fraud detection. This means adopting real-time capabilities that make us radically quicker at detecting and responding to suspicious and irregular transaction journeys. Incorporating real-time AI and machine learning to help us predict and adapt to existing and new fraud patterns that identify malware attacks, internal fraud attacks, or malicious code inserted into a transaction message field. And putting the blocking and preventative measures in place to instantly flag and notify of activity requiring immediate investigation. INETCO Insight helps with the detection, prediction, and blocking of switch malware attacks by screening and scoring every transaction in real time. INETCO Insight's in-depth real-time transaction monitoring and multi-link correlation capabilities provide a one-stop view into the entire round-trip transaction path, making it easy to audit every end-to-end transaction journey independently of the payment switch. There has been malware placed on a system that overrides existing fraud controls and is responsible for a man-in-the-middle or an ATM cash-out type of attack. Financial institutions and processors will instantly know when a front-end ISO transaction is not married with a back-end database transaction, or if there have been modified fields in the request and response message. With a network-based deployment, INETCO Insight can flag and alert to threats that bypass traditional fraud detection systems, spot compromised cards before they ever make it onto a hot list, and isolate which terminals or devices are being used to conduct coordinated attacks on your payments infrastructure. Example rules-based alerts used to detect ATM cash-out and man-in-the-middle attacks include a high number of international transactions within X hours, X or more bank cards carrying out withdrawals on the same foreign terminals within Y minutes, missing back-end transactions, and unexpected stand-ins. Here's an example of a real-time alert configured in INETCO Insight. Drilling into the configuration details, the rules parameters of this alert have been set to immediately identify when there is a withdrawal on an ATM to switch link and no corresponding transaction to the switch to host authorization link. When we drill down into the alert details, we can see that malware has infected the switch as a transaction never made it to the core transaction switch. The backend links are completely missing, and the approval statuses are inconsistent, with blank fields at the application level but approved at the service level, indicating that the authorization host did not approve the transaction. Because the backend links are missing, we know that the switch did not even try to contact the authorization host, further highlighting that this was not a normal stand-in. With INETCO's configurable risk scoring and rules-based alerts, organizations can immediately pick up and block switch malware attacks at the firewall or at the application layer before experiencing major financial loss, customer dissatisfaction, and reputational harm. To recap the benefits of deploying a real-time payment fraud detection solution such as INETCO Insight, be ready to experience speed, detect, investigate, and block suspicious and irregular transactions in milliseconds. Improve transaction approval precision, reduce the number of unnecessary customer transaction declines, chargebacks, and false positives by improving the precision of fraud risk scoring and transaction blocking capabilities. Up your trust and safety, reduce the risk of financial liability and stay out of the negative PR limelight. If you would like to discuss ideas on how to protect your payment switches from fraud and reduce the risk of financial liability, please reach out to me via email or check out INETCO's social networks and website. Don't forget to tune in next week as we discuss suspicious activity monitoring and blocking.